Okay, so welcome back to Breaking Dawn this morning, people. And of course, don't forget to pick up your ocho. All right? It's the organic candy, and I'll tell you more about that in the second hour. But right now, we have Industrial Relations Consultant, Mr. Ramkumar Narinesingh with us. And the topic for discussion this morning is NIB. Now, we'll try to address a few things because we can't address all the problems in NIB because we want to take some calls as well. So maybe the viewers will raise certain issues. Even right now on the live feed, I see Tommy Mohammed. Good morning to Tommy Mohammed on the live. And he has a question about NIB that we'll get to in just a little bit. But good morning to Mr. Narinesingh. Good to see you again and have you back. I know you missed last week, but we're back in action again. So what are the aspects of NIB that we want to discuss this morning or we want to get out there to the population?
All right. Well, Stefan, morning to Trinidad and Tobago. A couple of weeks ago, we started a conversation on NIB, and I pointed out that NIB is effectively owned by the people, people who contribute to NIB. It's one-third employees, two-thirds employers' contribution, and therefore It's not government benefit. It's managed, a facility managed by the government at Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that people who are working have some social security benefits in their age, and also during that coverage for sickness benefit in the event that during the time of the working they fall sick. Also, we know we have injury leave benefits, we have disability grants, we have maternity grants. I think we have a debt benefit grant. So a number of social security benefits fall under the umbrella of NIB.
Right.
Now, one of the things that people are always concerned about, and we saw it being raised recently in the public by Mr. Brian Manning, Senator, I think he is, Senator Brian Manning. He indicated that the government of Trinidad and Tobago is going behind 4,000 delinquent employers, people who are maybe not paying their NIB contributions on behalf of their employees, or collecting it and not remitting it to NIB. So we have people who don't pay at all and people who collect and don't remit. And what we are seeing is the adverse fallout of that, of course, Stefan, is that people who work, they work into retirement. The expectation is that when they turn 60, they will have these benefits, or the expectation is if they get injured, get sick, whatever the case may be, they only realize after the fact that they don't have the benefits. Well, first, I want to tell you this. The issue of that occurring, the blame is squarely, it falls squarely on the shoulders of the people who are responsible for managing the NIB system, the people who we pay,
right?
The employees of the people who are the board of NIB, and of course, by extension, the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Because in the first instance, the provisions of the NIB Act allow for NIB to check on employers, right? And if you don't have a system of consistency, or NIB is not allocating the resources that is needed to do the proper audits of employers' registered business in Trinidad and Tobago, then we are going to have this problem.
Right.
That's one side of it. Part of it, Stefan, falls as well on the shoulder of employees. You see, people, we in Trinidad and Tobago, we become very lackadaisical, as they say. We take things for granted when we get or maybe we don't even get a pay slip and we take it for granted.
For granted, yeah.
That the NIB contributions being deducted, or the fact that some people think, well, they don't take no deductions from my pay, so that's a good thing, man. I get all my pay. But they're not understanding that at some point it's going to affect you, because if something happens, you don't have that social benefits coverage.
Right.
Now, every year, employees are supposed to request a readout from NIB. That's what you should do. It's your right. You request a readout so you can check on your contributions, check and see what's missing, right? And if you have a concern, you have the right to lodge a report with NIB. And you can, honestly, NIB does not, they're not going to go back and, they're not supposed to go back and say, oh, well, Mr. John Doe called and said, that he has a concern that you may not be remitting his payments.
No.
Right? So we, as citizens, working class people, it's your responsibility to check on your NIB contributions every year to make sure that the payments are being remitted. All right. Now, and one last thing I will add before we go into maybe taking some calls. Stefan, when you consider, right, that you're making contributions, and employers out there, they make contributions, and then you hear your employee come back and say to you, well, NIB told me that they're not getting the money. And then when you query it, we need to realize that NIB has not been updating its records effectively and efficiently, and telling the employee, we're not seeing the contribution, and then the employer now has to go through this whole long process. Because it affects the workplace. The employee now starts, well, wait now, this company paying my NIB, only to find out that they've been paying it, and the NIB has not been updating its records and giving the employee false information. So I always tell employees, when you go to NIB and they tell you that your employer is not paying, ask them for it in writing. Say to them, listen, can you give that to me in writing that my contributions are missing? Request the readout. Because I'll tell you this, if I am an employer, and one of the things is if NIB tells my employees that they are not receiving the contributions and I have my receipts to prove it, I go behind NIB with that, you know.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Right? Finally, sorry, I did say one thing, but I need to add this. People who work for companies and after maybe 20 or 30 years, they realize that contributions are missing, or the people in the companies were never paying, or the records were not updated. Let me say this. Unfortunately, you have very little room for recourse. Unless if the company is operating still, of course you can go to the courts, and we can take action, and you can take action to try and recover your contributions.
Yeah.
And employers have to pay. But most of the time, Stefan, these companies close down. After 30 years, they hear the company no longer around. There's no recourse. So I am saying to everybody, it's very important for you to check the system, check your records, make sure that you're there.
Okay.
All right?
Let me ask you something, because you just mentioned something there, right? So very quickly here, that always confuses me, because I remember when my father was signing up for his NIB, they asked him the first company. One of the questions is all the companies that you've worked for, your places of employment. Now,
right.
But when he was working back in 1960 something, that company no longer exists. So what is you understand? So the whole system and the way that they gather information needs to be updated somehow or the other. Because, look, we have, and this is an example I'm drawing. We have an attorney general that couldn't remember the role that he played in a matter 14 years ago. So if you have somebody who is employed in 1960 with a company, and you in 2022 now, I mean, that's like that's what 62 years. So I mean, 62. You know what I'm saying? Or I just say 1960, but it could be 1970 or whatever. You're talking about 50 years ago, 45 years ago. How is somebody supposed to remember that realistically? Not everybody will remember that, and not all the companies will still be in operation. So.
Right.
The way that they gather this information, I mean, sometimes that slows down the process too, because you have people who can't remember, they don't know what to put on, some of them, they don't have guidance.
Correct.
And this is what happens. So, and maybe you could answer this. Somebody was asking me the other day, and a lot of people have asked me this in the past. If you have your own business and you're not employed with anybody else, but it's not like, a big corporation or anything like that, you just have a normal. Maybe you are you're washing cars for a living. That's what you do. You have your little car wash on the block, and it becomes successful. You have a good clientele. Can you pay your NIS?
All right. So NIB only accepts contributions from employers, and entrepreneurs, people who are registered sole traders, can also contribute, as far as I'm aware. Mm-hmm. But what is a regular person that is not a registered business cannot just walk off the street and go to NIB and make payments.
Okay.
Remember that there was a conversation going on for some time where an attempt was being made to get NIB to change its or have the legislation reformed so that people themselves can walk off the street and make contributions. People, even though they're not a registered business,
Yeah.
they can walk off and make a contribution or make contributions to NIB. And that is something that should be pursued. But right now, as it is, you can't just get up and just.
You can't do that. All right.
You have to, yeah.
But is it, and the next question, obviously, where the things are going by NIB, is if you even want to walk off, to be able to walk off the street and make make NIS payments so that at 60 you have a little thing to collect, because it's even worth it at this point, the way the things are going. Look, Tommy Mohammed, let's get to this question here and then we'll open the phone line, take some calls. So Tommy Mohammed is one of our live stream viewers and he wants to know if it was fair for Mr. Manning to borrow from the NIB fund to develop the government campus.
Well, Stefan, to answer that question directly, 100% I would say that it was not fair. And I'll tell you why. Two things. One, if we take the question exactly in context of what it is, because I can't remember the details of how that went, but what I would say is this. NIB is not a loans facility. So the government should be borrowing. However, NIB, the people who manage NIB, the board, they have a responsibility to make investments. So if it was an investment portfolio, then by all means, that means that the owners of NIB, the true owners, which would be the employees, people who contribute, they, of course, and their interest would be served if there's a return in terms of an investment. But to say that NIB should be given loans, I don't know that NIB is a loans facility. And if the government borrow money to just run a government project and to just put it back, definitely that would not be fair to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. 235-5325. But I'm just opening the phone lines here, so we'll open the phone lines and allow people to call in. Of course, Mr. Narinesingh is very schooled on many topics, including NIB and anything dealing with industrial relations. But this one on the NIB issue. So any questions you have, maybe you have an issue with NIB and you don't know how to get it resolved, maybe Mr. Narinesingh can guide you accordingly. All right, so 235-5325. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning to you. Go ahead.
I'm calling on behalf of my aunt, right?
Sure.
This is going into 2 years that she made her contribution to NIS and they don't want to pay her.
When you said going in 2 years, you mean it going in 2 years that she filed her application?
Or retire.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And
And anywhere we go, people want her to pay them to get the money from NIS.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'll have Mr. Narinesingh answer this, right? But okay, here what to do, there. Now this is a message only number. You have to WhatsApp me on this number. You following me?
Yeah.
I want you to WhatsApp your aunt's name, and the issue and a contact number to 327-7400.
Okay.
All right, you have the number?
327-7400.
Right. Send me the information there, and I'll see what I could do.
All right, thanks.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Narinesingh, 2 years she's filled out the application, nothing.
Right. I've always said this in the past, and I'll say it here again. NIB there's a penalty if employers pay their contributions late to NIB. A stiff penalty, right? And I find that with the length of the type of delays that people have to suffer or endure to get their benefits, I am of the view that people need to start to take NIB to task with that. Okay. Because NIB should start to also pay a penalty when they do not act in a timely way to process people's benefits. Now, I'm not sure, I'm presuming that this young lady, her aunt has retired and she's attempting to get her benefits based on her contributions. Now, let me say this, citizens, you're not supposed to pay anybody something or anything to get your benefits applications processed. Right. And there should be a double time. Normally, as far as I'm aware, NIB normally processes these things within 3 months when you make an application for retirement benefits. Sick leave has been a whole different issue because for some reason they're delaying those processing.
Right.
A lot of people complaining that people don't want to make the application. As a matter of fact, they think the employer should pay the sick leave because, and this is when it goes past, of course, the 14 days annual allotment that the employer is required to cover. Right? By the way, just an interesting thing to note, in Guyana, Stefan, the social security services, social benefit services, covers all sick leave, and employers do pay sick leave in Guyana. That's an interesting thing to note.
2355325. Let me take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Yes, Stefan, good morning.
Morning.
Morning to the gentleman from NIB, yeah.
No, he's not from NIB. He's not from NIB. He's an industrial relations consultant, but he knows, he has a lot of information as it relates to NIB, and he could assist you with that.
Right.
So what is the question?
I have a friend who retired in February one, right? But however, her job don't carry a pension. So the only thing she entitled to is the NIS claim. And NIB give her an appointment to come in next month, August month. What she's supposed to do by that time?
Okay.
She retired in February, but she appointment to go in and file the claim due to the COVID is August.
Okay.
And then I do have all the information.
Okay.
What she's supposed to do within that time?
All right. Mr. Narinesingh, any advice there?
Listen, it seems as though that we are at the mercy of a system that is not prepared to, meet the standard of expectation that they have established. My recommendation would be that she see an attorney, but you see, it's almost August, so she's already endured that suffering. Now, NIB, as I know, what they will do, they're gonna backdate the pension and pay her for the time. She'll get the money. The problem is NIB, because you can't be working when you file an application for pension. You have to not be working. You can't even be in Class C. Right. The logic. Well, this is the problem. The system doesn't seem to be taking into consideration that we deal with human beings. And their argument is going to be that, we're backlogged. But how is that going to address the issue of this woman probably being in a financial disadvantage for all that time, all those months? They tell you 3 months. That's what, double the period, Stefan?
Yeah, that's about double the period. March, April, May, June, July, August, yeah. About five or 6
Probably consult with a lawyer now when we're facing these challenges.
Yeah, but that's another cost. That's another cost, and you're not employed. Because you go to a lawyer, you have to pay the lawyer. You know what I mean?
So you're stuck.
We're stuck in a system. You see, we're stuck in a system that does not. It's like, okay, I've always said, right, before we take this final call, I've always said, look at the government. You do work for the government, right? And a lot of people who have contracts and stuff for the government, they could tell you this. The government is taking long to pay. People is always tell you that, I'm glad for the government contract, but oh gosh, but it's take long to pay. Now here's the thing there. Because my father, when he had his pest control company, we had all the hospitals that we used to treat. We had Port of Spain Hospital, St. Anne's, San Fernando Hospital. Right. We had all these hospitals. Eric Williams Medical Center, it was then just Mount Hope. But my point is this. When we do the work and we had to wait 4 and 5 months to get paid, we have contractors have loans to service. There's interest, right, to pay on these loans. So it's costing you, all right, because you have to pay these interest rates. But the government, on the other hand, holds your money for 3 and 4 months, but you don't get any interest when they pay you. You understand? So it's just like the same thing that you're saying with NIB. When they take long to pay, you should be compensated for the length of time that they've taken to make your payment. And we never get that. So we're always in a lose-lose situation. So I guess the question is, how do we change that? But let me take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning, dear. Go ahead.
Okay, I have been unemployed But when they came out with the thing last day stating that if you don't take your vaccine, you have to leave your job home. Well, they sent a letter,
Okay.
right? So after that, I got sick. So that would have been last year, October. I went and I applied this year to NIB because they said I've been, well, thank God my company, the company that I used to work for, they paid the contribution. But what one of the agents at NIB was telling me, I was supposed to apply within 6 months of getting sick in order to get the benefit. I want to know if that is true.
You want to know if that is true? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me get Mr. Narinesingh in on this. All right, so Mr. Narinesingh, you heard the question?
Yeah, I heard the question.
All right.
The arrangements with the entire pandemic situation, this was very unique. This was created by the government using the NIB facilities. And they kind of, in my view, well, there is no legislation or anything for it. There's nothing in the act that speaks on this. And what happened was that they just kind of made up the rules to kind of guide this quarantine and loss of job. And this, so all this grants that were given under the NIB. So I know that they did set a time limit for how they're going to process it. Unfortunately, it was not something that, it was just something that was dictated and used. So if you're outside of the scope, there's very little that you can do to really get any form of recourse. But I want to say something there. I heard the young lady say something that's very disturbing. She said lost her job because she didn't want to take the vaccine. Did I say that correct, Stefan?
She said she became unemployed when employers were insisting that you get vaccinated or, no job.
Yeah, that's an unfair dismissal. That's not a legitimate reason. You see, and I don't want to, I know we're going to be touching on something else, but a different thing there. She should not have lost her job because she was not vaccinated. And there's no way a system where you can write an IB and give them an explanation for the reason why you are processing your application late. And I think that system, could use that system, write a letter explaining it and submit the claim.
Yeah, because
and see.
Yeah, what she's saying is that after she became unemployed because of the whole thing with the employer and the vaccination thing, she got sick in October, right?
Right.
And when she got sick, she then applied for the benefit.
Right, and they're saying that she didn't process it because she was unemployed, and I've been saying she was unemployed, so they can't process it.
No, they're saying that she was supposed to apply within a 6-month period.
No, there's a process to write a letter and explain, to ask for an extension of time to file the application. She can do that process.
She could do that process?
There is a system that allows you to file the claim outside, even if you're late with the filing. But what I do know, normally, she would not be filing for sick leave benefits, loss of earnings. She may be filing for, there's another category for that, because if you're unemployed but you are a member of NIB, and you end up becoming sick or disabled in any way, there is a system that you can file to get some relief. So she's going to an NIB office and have a conversation with one of the senior officers there. Take the person's name, contact information, and have a conversation with them. And if you don't get it, then you should move higher up the chain. Don't just leave it.
Okay.
Because sometimes you have to tell you things and, senior people could better explain it in the NIB system.
All right. Well, Mr. Narinesingh, thanks a lot for your time. And I know you'll be back next week, Thursday. I think this NIB issue, I think we would have gotten, I think the phone line might be still ringing off the hook, because a lot of people have issues with this, with NIB and NIS and things of that nature. But maybe it's a topic we'll touch again sometime, because we don't know what's going to pop up over the next week and what might be relevant to deal with at that point in time. But thanks a lot all the same, and next week Thursday, man.
Well, yes, Stefan, I think we should also try to get an NIB official, somebody in on the program. I think I will reach out to them and see if somebody will be interested in talking to us.
That would be brilliant. Actually, I have somebody in there that works, extraordinarily well. Maybe I could reach out to her and see if there's anyone from NIB that would be willing to assist the many requests and complaints that I get on a daily basis. But thanks a lot, man.
Of course, thanks. Have a good morning.
Yeah, man. So that's Mr. Ramkumar, Narinesingh, Industrial Relations Consultant. We want to thank you guys for your calls. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues that they're dealing with NIB. I'll reach out to the communications, people in communications, and see if they could make somebody available from time to time to hear what some of you are going through, some of the difficulties in accessing your benefits, and we'll see how we can move forward from there.